Boys and girls, I'm going to work today with the story Fireflies by Julie Brinkle, excuse me, there's an N in there. And I wanted to use this story because we're starting on our narrative writing, and we're going to do a bunch of teaching points regarding finding ideas, what a small moment is, and making sure we have a big thing that happened in our narrative writing. And in our lessons, I'm going to break that down for you. But this story is probably what I'll use quite a bit as an example. And speaking of small moments, shortly before I started this, I took the dog outside so that he gets some exercise. And you know you're really busy when you throw the sunglasses on, you get outside, you're throwing the ball for the dog, and you realize you have 2 pairs of other glasses on top of your head. It is the way to scare the neighbors. Anyway, I removed the glasses, left the sunglasses on, played a few minutes, and now I'm here with just 1 pair of glasses. That is an example of a small moment. So, we're going to talk about getting ideas. And this one, I think, is kind of a small moment captured from someone's summer vacation. That one moment that connects to something you learned, or the emotions of that summer, or you realize something. So I want you to pay close attention to this. And what is the big thing, the heart of the story, that moment in the story, the climax? The dedication page says, "To my mother and father with love." And then, on a summer evening, I looked up from dinner, through the open window to the backyard. It was growing dark. My treehouse was a black shape in the tree, and I wouldn't go up there now. But something flickered there, a moment. I looked, and it was gone. It flickered again, over near the fence. Fireflies! "Don't let your dinner get cold," said Mama. I used to love fireflies back on the East Coast. So cool. I forked the meat and corn and potatoes into my mouth. "Please, may I go out? The fireflies." Mama smiled and Daddy nodded. "Go ahead," they said. I ran from the table down to the cellar to find a jar. I knew where to look. Behind the stairs. Look at all those canning jars. Somehow, I don't think he's going to can fruit. The jars were dusty, and I polished one clean on my shirt. Then I ran back up, 2 steps at a time. Holes, I remembered, so they can breathe. And as quietly as I could, so she won't catch me dulling them, I poke holes in the top of the jar with Mama's scissors. She's gonna know, just saying. The screen door banged behind me as I ran from the house. If someone said, "Don't slam it," I wasn't listening. I called to my friends in the street, "Fireflies!" But they had come before me with polished jars, and others were coming behind. You see the whole group out there? The sky was darker now. My ears rang with crickets. My eyes stung from staring too long. I blinked hard as I watched them. Fireflies. Blinking on, blinking off, dipping low, soaring high above my head, making white patterns in the dark. We ran like crazy, barefooted in the grass. Catch them, we cried, grasping at the lights. I bet you guys have memories of your summer in a moment that was special. Suddenly, a voice called out above the others, "I caught one!" And it was my own. I thrust my hand into the jar and spread it open. The jar glowed like moonlight, and I held it in my hands. I felt a tremble of joy and shouted, "I can catch hundreds!" I wonder where the author's taking us in this story. Then we dashed about, waving our hands in the air like nets, catching 2, 10, hundreds of fireflies, thrusting them into the jars, waving our hands for more. Then someone called from my house, "It's time to come in now." And others called from other houses, and it was over. My friends took jars of fireflies to different homes. I climbed the stairs to my room and set the jar on a table by my bed. Mama kissed me and turned out the lights. "I caught hundreds," I said. Daddy called from the hallway. "See you later, alligator." "After a while, crocodile," I called back. "I caught hundreds of fireflies." In the dark, I watched the fireflies from my bed. They blinked off and on, and the jar glowed like moonlight. But it was not the same. The fireflies beat their wings against the glass and fell to the bottom and lay there. Wonder what he's thinking. The light in the jar turned yellow like a flashlight left on too long. I tried to swallow, but something in my throat would not go down. And the light grew dimmer, green, like moonlight under water. I shut my eyes tight and put the pillow over my head. They were my fireflies. I caught them. They made moonlight in my jar, but the jar was nearly dark. I flung off the covers. I went to the window, opened the jar, and aimed it at the stars. "Fly!" What do you think he realized? Then the jar began to glow green, then gold, then white as the moon, and the fireflies poured out into the night. Fireflies! Blinking on, blinking off, dipping low, soaring high, above my head, making circles around the moon, like dancing stars. It's a beautiful illustration, I think. I held the jar, dark and empty in my hands. The moonlight and the fireflies swam in my tears, but I could feel myself smiling. So we'll talk more about this story and use it as an example of a personal narrative, but I want to point out that they took a small moment in the summer of this moment of catching fireflies where there was a strong emotion and a decision to be made, and they turned it into a story. The big thing that happened is probably the realization that the fireflies wouldn't survive and are trapped in the jar, making that decision to let them go free. The feeling at the end is our resolution, and then you can work backwards to the events getting us to our big moment. When we write, we're going to talk about that in planning our writing after we've chosen a small moment and we've gotten some ideas that we can start thinking about. I look forward to writing with you and catching up with you in our meeting to talk more about the writing process. Bye!